Maya's hands trembled on the steering wheel as her headlights cut through the swirling white chaos ahead. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the blizzard, each sweep revealing only more snow before being buried again. She should have left the clinic hours ago, but the emergency call had changed everything. A horse. Trapped under fallen barn beams in this godforsaken storm. It had taken her and 2 other vets 3 hours to free the poor animal, and now she was paying the price. The radio crackled with weather warnings she didn't need to hear, she was living them. Come on, she muttered, pressing harder on the gas pedal. Her truck lurched forward, tires spinning on black ice before finding purchase. The familiar turn to her driveway appeared through the storm like a beacon of hope. Home. Finally. But as her headlights swept across her front yard, Maya's foot slammed on the brakes. Her truck skidded to a stop, engine still running, headlights illuminating a scene that made her blood freeze. 3 massive shapes lay collapsed in her pristine white yard. Dark stains spread through the snow around them like spilled wine, creating a grotesque contrast against the winter landscape. Bodies. Large ones. Maya's veterinary training kicked in before her fear could paralyze her. She grabbed her emergency kit from the passenger seat and stepped into the howling wind. Snow immediately attacked her face, but she pushed forward, flashlight beam dancing ahead of her. They weren't human bodies. They were wolves. 3 of them, each larger than any wolf she'd ever seen in person or in textbooks. The first 2 lay motionless, their thick gray and brown coats matted with blood. Their breathing was shallow, barely visible in the storm. But the 3rd one was watching her. Maya's flashlight beam found amber eyes that reflected the light with an almost supernatural glow. The massive black wolf lay on his side, but his head was raised, tracking her every movement with an intelligence that made her skin crawl. "Oh my God," she whispered, dropping to her knees beside them. Her trained eye immediately catalogued their injuries. These weren't random wounds from a territorial fight or a hunting accident. The cuts were too precise, too deliberate. Bullet grazes along ribs. Clean knife wounds across flanks. Someone had hunted these animals. "Easy, boy," Maya said softly, approaching the black wolf with her hands visible. "I'm going to help you." The moment her fingers touched his thick fur, electricity shot up her arm like she'd grabbed a live wire. The world tilted, and for one impossible second, she saw something that couldn't be real, a flash of a man's face. Dark hair, desperate amber eyes, and a jaw clenched in pain. Maya jerked her hand back, heart hammering against her ribs. The vision vanished, leaving only the wolf staring up at her with those 2 intelligent eyes. That's not possible," she breathed. The wolf made a sound, not quite a whimper, not quite a growl. It was almost like he was trying to communicate. The sound broke through her shock, and her veterinary instincts roared back to life. These animals were dying. Whatever she'd imagined could wait. Maya ran back to her truck, her mind already forming a plan. She had rope, tarps, and a winch system for emergencies. It wouldn't be easy, but she could get them inside. Her living room would have to become a surgical suite. The next hour passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Maya worked with desperate efficiency, using her truck to drag makeshift stretchers toward her house. The wolves were heavy, much heavier than normal wolves should be, but somehow she managed. Her living room transformed into a veterinary ward. She pushed aside furniture, laid out sterile sheets, and set up her emergency equipment. The brown wolf and gray wolf remained unconscious as she started 4 drips and cleaned their wounds. But the black wolf watched everything she did. As Maya worked on the unconscious wolves, she became increasingly aware of those amber eyes following her movements. It was unsettling, but also oddly comforting. There was something protective in his gaze, like a guardian watching over his family. When she finally turned her attention to the black wolf, he didn't resist. As she examined a deep gash along his flank, he actually shifted his position to give her better access. The movement was subtle but deliberate. "You're making this easier for me," Maya murmured, threading her needle. "Wild animals don't do that." The wolf's eyes met hers, and she swore she saw understanding there. Not just animal awareness, but human-level comprehension. Maya had just started stitching when thunder crashed outside. But it wasn't storm thunder, the sound was rhythmic, mechanical. Vehicle engines. Her blood turned to ice as bright lights flooded her windows. Heavy boots stomped onto her wooden porch, each step deliberate and threatening. Fists pounded on her door with aggressive authority. Open up. We're tracking a dangerous pack. Maya's world tilted. Through her peephole, she counted 5 men in tactical gear, assault rifles held ready. Their leader was a scarred man with cold, predatory eyes that reminded her uncomfortably of a hunter who'd cornered his prey. Behind her, the black wolf struggled to stand despite his wounds, a low growl rumbling from his chest. The sound woke the other 2 wolves instantly. They moved with surprising coordination, positioning themselves between Maya and the door like a protective barrier. "Ma'am, we know they're here," the leader called out. "These aren't normal wolves. They've killed livestock, attacked people. You're in serious danger." Maya's mouth went dry. "I haven't seen any wolves," she called back, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "We can smell them. Their blood trail leads right to your door." "Smell them? What kind of rangers talk like that?" Maya's mind raced as she studied the men through her peephole. Something felt wrong about them, the way they moved, the hunger in their voices, the military-grade equipment. These weren't wildlife officials. "Check my property if you want," Maya said, "but I'm not opening my door to strangers in a storm." Silence stretched between them, tense and threatening. Then she heard footsteps circling her house. Flashlight beams probed her windows like searching fingers. The wolves tensed, their hackles raised, ready to fight despite their injuries. Maya held her breath, watching the beams sweep past her living room. If they looked through the right window at the right angle. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps returned to her porch. "This isn't over," the leader said, his voice carrying a promise that made Maya's skin crawl. "We'll be back." Engine sounds faded into the storm, red taillights disappearing into the swirling white darkness. Maya collapsed against her door, adrenaline crash hitting her like a physical blow. When she turned around, all 3 wolves were standing upright, alert and ready despite their wounds. The black wolf approached slowly and gently nuzzled her hand, a clear gesture of gratitude. "You're welcome," Maya whispered, then felt foolish for talking to wild animals. But as she looked into those amber eyes, she didn't feel foolish at all. She moved to check their wounds and gasped. The injuries that should have taken weeks to heal were already closing. The gray wolf's bullet wound had stopped bleeding entirely. The brown wolf was no longer limping. "That's impossible," Maya breathed, touching the healing flesh. "Wounds don't heal like this." But they were. Right before her eyes, the animals were recovering at an inhuman rate. Maya set up makeshift beds near her fireplace, expecting the wolves to leave once they were strong enough. Instead, they settled in like they belonged there. The black wolf positioned himself where he could see both the door and Maya. The other 2 flanked the windows. Like guards. Like protectors. Exhaustion finally overwhelmed her, and Maya collapsed into her armchair. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and confused. As she stared into the dying flames of her fireplace, something caught her eye. Scattered around her coffee table, barely visible in the flickering light, were shreds of fabric. Not fur, actual fabric. Pieces of what looked like human clothing. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She looked at the 3 wolves, now appearing to sleep peacefully by the fire. But she caught the black wolf's eye crack open, watching her with that disturbingly intelligent gaze. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. A text message from an unknown number. "They're not what they seem. Neither are you. Your grandmother's journal is hidden in the basement wall. Read it before they fully heal, or you'll never understand what you've gotten yourself into. Trust no one who comes hunting. A friend." Maya's blood turned to ice. Her grandmother had died 5 years ago. Maya had inherited this cabin, but she'd never been in the basement. It had been boarded up since she moved in, and she'd never found the time or motivation to explore it. How could anyone know about a journal she didn't even know existed? The Black Wolf lifted his head, those amber eyes fixing directly on her phone. For a moment, Maya swore she saw human understanding there. Fear. And something that looked disturbingly like guilt. Outside, the storm continued to rage, wind howling through the trees like a wild thing. But as Maya stared at the mysterious text, then at the three impossible wolves who had somehow found their way to her door, she realized the weather was the least of her problems. The real storm was just beginning. Maya looked from her phone to the wolves and back again. 3 supernatural creatures. Mysterious hunters. A dead grandmother's hidden secrets. And somehow, she was at the center of it all. She had 2 choices: pretend none of this was happening and hope it all went away, or embrace the impossible and find out what she'd gotten herself into. The Black Wolf's amber eyes held hers, and in that gaze, Maya saw a silent plea. Trust us, those eyes seemed to say. We need you. Maya looked at her phone one more time, then at the basement door she'd avoided for 5 years. Okay, Grandma, she whispered into the crackling silence. Let's see what you left me. The adventure was about to begin. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 2. Maya woke to an unnatural silence that made her skin prickle. The howling wind had died sometime during the night, leaving behind the kind of absolute quiet that only came after a brutal storm. Pale morning sunlight streamed through her windows, casting everything in a deceptively peaceful glow. She'd fallen asleep in her armchair, still clutching her phone with that impossible text message. Her neck ached from the awkward position, but as she shifted, memory came flooding back. The wolves. The hunters. The mysterious message about her grandmother's journal. Maya's eyes snapped open fully, searching her living room. They were still there, but they'd moved during the night. The massive black wolf, Kai, if the journal entry was right, sat by her front door like a sentinel. His amber eyes tracked her movement, alert and watchful. The gray wolf had positioned himself at the large front window, while the brown wolf claimed the side window overlooking her driveway. Strategic positions. Like soldiers on guard duty. Good morning, Maya said softly, her voice hoarse from sleep. All 3 wolves turned toward her, and she caught something that made her breath hitch. Recognition. Not the vague awareness of a wild animal, but the clear acknowledgement of beings who understood language. Maya pushed herself out of the chair, muscles protesting. She needed coffee, food, and answers, probably in that order. As she moved toward the kitchen, the black wolf rose smoothly to his feet and stepped aside, creating a clear path for her to pass. Maya froze. Did you just move out of my way? The wolf's ears twitched, and if she didn't know better, she'd swear he looked embarrassed. In the kitchen, Maya went through the motions of making coffee while her mind reeled. She filled 3 large bowls with water and set them out, along with some leftover chicken from her refrigerator. The wolves approached the offering with an odd formality, waiting until she nodded before eating. And they ate like people trying to remember their manners. No gulping or tearing at the meat. The black wolf even seemed to chew thoughtfully. Over the next 3 days, Maya called in sick to the veterinary clinic, something she'd never done without a genuine emergency. But this was an emergency, even if she couldn't explain it to her boss. The wolves wouldn't leave, despite being obviously healed. Their wounds had closed completely, leaving only faint marks in their fur. More disturbing were their increasingly human behaviors. When Maya said, "I need to check the mail," the gray wolf positioned himself at the window to watch the road. When she mentioned being tired, the brown wolf nudged her toward the couch with surprising gentleness. They understood complex sentences, not just simple commands. The mailman's visit on Tuesday nearly gave Maya a heart attack. All 3 wolves had erupted into synchronized growling, placing themselves between her and the door until the postal truck disappeared down the road. They weren't just protective, they were actively guarding her. But the most unsettling discovery came each morning when Maya woke up. The couch cushions bore distinct impressions, not wolf-sized indentations, but human-sized ones. As if 3 people had been sitting there during the night. Maya began leaving small tests. A book placed just so on the coffee table would be moved by morning. The television remote would migrate to the opposite end of the couch. Once, she found the kitchen faucet dripping, though she was certain she'd turned it off completely. Someone was moving around her house at night. Someone with opposable thumbs. The mysterious text haunted her thoughts. Your grandmother's journal is hidden in the basement wall. Maya had avoided that basement for 5 years, telling herself it was just old storage space she didn't need. But Wednesday evening, driven by a curiosity she could no longer ignore, she finally descended the narrow wooden stairs. The basement was exactly as she remembered, dusty, dim, filled with old furniture and boxes. Maya ran her hands along the stone walls, searching for anything that felt different. In the far corner, behind a stack of moldering boxes, her fingers found what felt like a seam in the mortar. There's something back here, she murmured, and was startled to hear footsteps on the stairs. All 3 wolves had followed her down, their eyes reflecting the dim bulb overhead. Maya pushed aside boxes and old furniture, revealing a section of wall that looked newer than the rest. When she pressed against it, it shifted slightly. A hidden panel. With growing excitement and dread, Maya worked the panel loose. Behind it was a small room she'd never known existed, filled with her grandmother's belongings. Ancient leather-bound books lined makeshift shelves. Glass jars filled with dried herbs covered a small table. Crystals caught the light from her flashlight beam. And photographs. Dozens of them, scattered across every surface. Pictures of wolves standing beside people, wolves in front of houses, wolves that looked far too intelligent to be ordinary animals. Maya's hands shook as she picked up a leather journal from the center table. Her grandmother's handwriting filled every page, neat, precise script in fading blue ink. September 15, 2018. The Chin bloodline has protected supernatural beings for 7 generations. Maya doesn't know yet, but she carries the gift. When the time comes, she'll understand. Maya sank into a dusty chair, reading with growing amazement and terror. October 3, 2018. The werewolf pack arrived today. 3 brothers, cursed by the witch Morgana. Kai, Ash, and River. They're bound to protect Maya, whether she knows it or not. The curse is growing stronger. November 20, 2018. Maya's magical abilities are dormant but powerful. She'll need training when she awakens to her heritage. The wolves sense her potential, it's why they've accepted the guardian bond so completely. The entries painted an impossible picture. Her grandmother hadn't been the quiet librarian Maya remembered. Elena Chen had been a practicing witch, helping supernatural creatures for decades. And Maya, practical, scientific Maya who trusted in medicine and logic, was supposedly her magical heir. Maya flipped to the final entry, dated just 2 weeks before her grandmother's death. January 8, 2019. The curse grows stronger. Kai, Ash, and River may not survive much longer in wolf form. If something happens to me, Maya must learn the truth. She's the only one who can save them. The hunters are coming. I've hidden everything she'll need, but she has to choose to embrace her birthright. The wolves cannot hold their human forms much longer without her help. Maya's blood turned to ice. 5 years. Her grandmother had died 5 years ago, and these wolves had been cursed for even longer. How long had they been searching for her? How long had they been trapped in forms that weren't truly theirs? She raced up the basement stairs, journal clutched against her chest. The 3 wolves waited in her living room, and as Maya looked at them with her new knowledge, everything clicked into place. The intelligence in their eyes. Their protective instincts. The way they moved with such coordination. Kai. Maya whispered, looking directly at the black wolf. His entire body went rigid. Those amber eyes widened with shock, hope, and something that looked like desperate relief. A soft whine escaped his throat, not an animal sound, but something heartbreakingly human. Ash? Maya turned to the gray wolf, who took a step forward, his tail wagging tentatively. River? The brown wolf's ears perked up, and he let out a sound that was definitely not a howl. All three wolves moved toward her at once, pressing close but careful not to knock her over. Maya felt their warmth, their solid presence, and underneath it all, something else. A connection she couldn't name, like invisible threads linking her to each of them. Maya sank to her knees, running her hands through their thick fur. You're not wolves at all, are you? You're men. Cursed men. Kai, and she was certain now that's who the black wolf was, nudged the journal in her hands. When Maya opened it, he carefully placed his paw on a specific passage. The Qin bloodline carries the power to break supernatural curses, but only through willing sacrifice and absolute trust. Maya looked into 3 pairs of eyes that held entirely too much human pain and hope. You've been waiting for me to figure this out. Kai's head dipped once, an unmistakably human nod. And those hunters, they're not trying to protect people from dangerous wolves. They're trying to stop me from helping you. Another nod, this one from all 3 wolves. Maya closed the journal and took a shaky breath. Her entire world had shifted in the space of a few minutes. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her family, about reality itself, had been turned upside down. But as she looked at the 3 beings who had somehow found their way to her door in their darkest hour, Maya felt something settle into place. The connection she'd sensed, the protective instincts that had overridden her common sense, the electric shock she'd felt when touching Kai's fur, it all made sense now. They weren't just random wolves seeking shelter. They were her responsibility. Her purpose. And somehow, she was their only hope for freedom. Okay, Maya said quietly, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was accepting. Grandma Elena, if you can hear me, I hope you left better instructions in here somewhere. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. The 3 wolves pressed closer, and Maya could swear she felt their gratitude washing over her in waves. Outside, storm clouds were gathering again, but for the first time since this all began, Maya wasn't afraid. She had work to do. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 3. Maya lay in her bed that night, staring at the ceiling as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Sleep felt impossible after everything she discovered. Her grandmother's journal rested on her nightstand, filled with secrets that challenged everything she thought she knew about her family, her life, herself. Downstairs, she could hear the soft sounds of movement. Not the click of claws on hardwood, but something else. Something that sounded suspiciously like footsteps. Maya had positioned herself so she could see down the hallway through her cracked bedroom door. The living room was visible from this angle, bathed in silvery moonlight streaming through the windows. The 3 wolves had settled into their usual positions, guardians even in rest. At least, she thought they were resting. Maya slitted her eyes to mere cracks, feigning sleep while keeping watch. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she waited, every nerve ending alert. If her grandmother's journal was right, if the impossible was really possible, then midnight might bring answers. The old grandfather clock in her hallway began to chime, its deep tones resonating through the house. 1, 2, 3. As the 12th chime faded into silence, Maya witnessed something that would have sent her running screaming just a week ago. The air around the black wolf began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. A strange energy filled the room, making Maya's skin tingle even from a distance. The wolf's form stretched impossibly, bones crackling with soft pops that sounded more like settling than breaking. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a gasp as she watched the transformation unfold. It was beautiful and terrifying and absolutely impossible. Within moments, where the massive black wolf had been, a man now knelt on her living room floor. He was magnificent. Tall, even crouched as he was, with broad shoulders and lean muscle that spoke of both strength and grace. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and when he lifted his head, those same amber eyes that had watched her so intently now gazed around the room with distinctly human awareness. But there was something untamed about him, something that whispered of barely contained wildness. The way he moved was too fluid, too predatory. He was human, but not entirely. Not anymore. Kai, and Maya knew without question that's who this was, rose smoothly to his feet and moved toward her linen closet with silent steps. He pulled out one of her spare blankets and wrapped it around his waist, the gesture both modest and practical. The other two wolves watched him with intelligent eyes, and Maya realized they were still themselves, just trapped in animal form while he had this brief window of humanity. Maya, Kai said softly, his voice rough and unused, like someone who hadn't spoken in far too long. I know you're awake. Maya's heart stopped. There was no point in pretending now. She sat up slowly, pulling her robe around herself as she moved to the top of the stairs. Kai remained in the living room, clearly giving her space. You're him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're really him. I'm Kai, he confirmed, and hearing his name in his own voice sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. And I need you to know, we're not going to hurt you. We couldn't, even if we wanted to. We're bound to protect you. Maya descended the stairs carefully, stopping halfway down. Even with the distance between them, she could feel the pull of whatever connection linked them. It was stronger now, with him in human form. What are you? She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Werewolves, Kai said simply. But not by choice. Pain flickered across his angular features. We were cursed 3 years ago by a witch named Morgana Blackthorn. This form, this brief window of humanity, it only lasts a few hours each night, and only when we're near you. Why me? Maya asked, though her grandmother's journal had already provided pieces of the answer. Kai's amber eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Your bloodline. Your grandmother Elena was one of the most powerful witches in North America. She helped supernatural creatures for decades, offering sanctuary and protection to those who needed it. When Morgana cursed us, Elena bound us to you as guardians. It was supposed to be temporary, just until she could research a way to break the curse. But she died, Maya said quietly. Yes. The single word carried a weight of grief and growing desperation. And we've been slowly dying ever since. Each month that passes, we get weaker. We spend less time human, more time lost to the wolf. If we don't break the curse soon. He didn't finish the sentence, but Maya understood. They were running out of time. Maya came down the rest of the stairs, drawn by the raw honesty in his voice. How long do you have? In this form? Maybe 2 hours, if we're lucky. Until dawn. Kai's jaw tightened. But you're asking how long until the curse consumes us completely. Maya nodded. Weeks. Maybe a month. He gestured toward his brothers, still trapped in wolf form. Ash and River can barely manage 20 minutes human anymore. I'm stronger because I'm the alpha, but even I'm losing ground. The weight of responsibility settled on Maya's shoulders like a heavy cloak. These men, these beings, were depending on her for their very humanity. Tell me about this Morgana. Why did she curse you? Kai's expression darkened, and Maya caught a glimpse of the predator that lived beneath his human facade. We were protecting someone she wanted dead. A young witch named Sarah who threatened Morgana's power base. Sarah was barely 18, just coming into her abilities, but she was strong. Stronger than Morgana had been at that age. What happened to her? We failed. The words were laced with self-recrimination and rage. Morgana killed her anyway, right in front of us. But she cursed us as punishment for interfering. Said we'd spend eternity as beasts, never again able to protect anyone. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cool night air. The hunters who came during the storm. Supernatural bounty hunters, Kai confirmed. Morgana hired them to capture us before you could figure out how to break the curse. They'd been tracking us for months. And now they know about me. Kai's nod was grim. They'll be back. With more men, better weapons. And they won't just want us anymore, they'll want you too, now that they know you're Elena's granddaughter. Your potential power makes you a threat to Morgana's plans." As if his words had summoned them, headlights suddenly swept across Maya's windows. Not the single vehicle from before, but multiple sets of lights, moving with military precision. Kai tensed, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. "They're here." Maya's blood turned to ice as she counted the lights. At least 6 vehicles, surrounding her property. This wasn't a casual check, this was a coordinated assault. "How many?" she whispered. "Too many." Kai moved toward his brothers, who were already rising to their feet, hackles raised. "Maya, whatever happens, stay behind us. Don't let them separate you from us." The sound of car doors slamming echoed through the night, followed by the organized movement of multiple teams. These weren't the same hunters from before, these were professionals. "Maya Chen," a voice called through a megaphone. "We know you're harboring dangerous creatures. Come out alone, and we can discuss this reasonably." Kai let out a low growl that was more wolf than human. "Don't even think about it." "What do they want with me?" "To use you," Kai said, his voice hard. "Morgana needs a Chen bloodline which to amplify her own power. She's been waiting for you to manifest your abilities." "But I don't have any abilities," Maya protested. Kai's amber eyes met hers, and she saw certainty there. "You do. You just haven't accessed them yet. But being near us, especially when we're in human form, will start to awaken them." As if to prove his point, Maya felt a strange tingling in her hands, a warmth that hadn't been there before. The connection she'd sensed to the wolves was growing stronger, more defined. "Ms. Chen," the voice called again. "We're coming in. For your own safety, step away from the creatures." Heavy footsteps approached her porch, and Maya realized this confrontation was inevitable. But now she understood the stakes. This wasn't just about saving 3 cursed men, it was about preventing a powerful witch from gaining access to abilities Maya didn't even know she possessed. "Kai," she said softly, "teach me what I need to know." His eyes flashed with something between hope and determination. "There's no time for lessons now. But Maya, trust your instincts. Trust the connection between us. And whatever you do, don't let them take you alive." The front door exploded inward under the force of a battering ram, and armed figures poured into Maya's living room like a dark tide. The real battle was about to begin. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 4. The night air crackled with tension as tactical vehicles surrounded Maya's property like predators circling wounded prey. This wasn't the hasty approach from the Storm Knight, this was a military operation, executed with cold precision that made Maya's blood run cold. Floodlights blazed to life, turning her quiet sanctuary into a war zone. The scarred leader from before stepped out of the lead vehicle, but this time he wasn't alone. At least 20 armed figures moved through the shadows, each one carrying weapons that gleamed with an unnatural silver sheen. "Maya Chen," his voice boomed through a megaphone, amplified and distorted. "You're harboring dangerous creatures that have killed innocent people. Come out alone, with your hands visible, and we can end this without bloodshed." Inside the house, Kai's human form shimmered and dissolved as he shifted back into his wolf shape. The transformation was faster this time, driven by adrenaline and the need to protect. Ash and River flanked him immediately, 3 massive forms ready to defend Maya with their lives. "They're not giving us a choice," Kai's voice echoed in Maya's mind, and she realized with shock that she could hear his thoughts. The connection between them was growing stronger, more intimate. Heavy boots thundered onto her porch, and Maya heard the distinctive sound of equipment being positioned. These weren't just hunters, they were a paramilitary force armed for supernatural warfare. 30 seconds, Ms. Chen, then we're coming in." The countdown felt like a death sentence. Maya pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering so hard she was sure the hunters could hear it. The wolves positioned themselves in a protective semicircle around her, but she could sense their desperation. They were strong, but not against this many opponents with specialized weapons. A metallic crash echoed through the house as something heavy struck her front door. Once. Twice. On the third impact, the door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and twisted metal. Armed figures poured through the breach like a dark tide, moving with practiced efficiency. Red laser sights danced across her walls, seeking targets. The lead hunter swept into her living room, his rifle trained directly on Kai's massive black form. Maya's terror spiked to unbearable levels as she saw his finger tighten on the trigger. These men weren't here to capture, they were here to kill. Time slowed to a crawl as she watched the hunter's weapon rise, the silver-tipped bullets designed to tear through supernatural flesh. "Don't touch them." The words tore from Maya's throat with a force that surprised her, carrying emotions she didn't know she possessed. But it was more than just sound. Power exploded from deep within her core, rushing through her body like liquid fire. Golden light erupted from Maya's hands, brilliant and devastating. The energy struck the lead hunter like a physical blow, hurling him backward into his companions. The other armed figures scrambled for cover as furniture overturned, windows cracked under the pressure, and a protective barrier of shimmering light formed around Maya and the wolves. Maya stared at her hands in absolute shock. They glowed with internal fire, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. The power felt ancient and familiar, like something that had been sleeping in her blood for generations, waiting for this moment to awaken. The hunters picked themselves up from the floor, but when they tried to advance, they slammed into an invisible wall. The magical barrier held firm, crackling with energy that made the air itself hum. "Impossible," the lead hunter snarled, pulling off his tactical helmet. Elena's granddaughter was supposed to be powerless. The witch said her abilities were completely dormant. "Looks like your intel was wrong," Maya said, surprising herself with how confident she sounded. Inside, she was terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Magic. She was doing actual magic. The three wolves pressed close to her, and Maya could feel them drawing strength from her power. Through the mystical connection, she sensed their amazement, their gratitude, and something deeper, a bond that went beyond mere protection. They believed in her completely. But maintaining the barrier was like trying to hold back a river with her bare hands. Maya could feel her energy bleeding away with each passing second, the golden light growing dimmer as her strength waned. Whatever power she'd awakened, she didn't know how to control it properly. "Maya, focus on us," Kai's mental voice reached her. "Let our strength anchor yours." She closed her eyes and reached out through their bond, feeling the steady presence of all three wolves. Their combined will help stabilize her magic, but she knew it was only a temporary solution. The lead hunter circled her barrier like a caged animal, his cold eyes studying the magical defenses for weaknesses. There was something familiar about his face, something that nagged at Maya's memory. "You can't maintain this forever, girl," he said, his voice carrying a strange mixture of professional detachment and personal pain. "Lower the barrier and step away from those creatures. They've infected you with supernatural corruption, but it's not too late to save you." "Save me from what?" Maya demanded, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of maintaining her defenses. The hunter reached up and pulled off his helmet completely, revealing a face that made Maya's world tilt on its axis. She recognized those features from faded photographs tucked away in her mother's jewelry box, pictures of a man who was supposed to be dead. "Hello, Maya," he said quietly. "I'm your father." Maya's knees nearly buckled. "That's impossible. My father died when I was 2 years old." "I let your mother think that. It was safer for everyone involved." His eyes were nothing like the warm, laughing man from her childhood pictures. These eyes were cold, hardened by years of violence and loss. "I've spent the last 20 years hunting monsters like these. I won't let my daughter become one of them." The emotional shock hit Maya like a physical blow. Her barrier flickered and dimmed as her concentration shattered. The man she'd mourned her entire life was standing in her living room, pointing weapons at beings she'd sworn to protect. "These creatures have infected you with their evil," her father continued, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "I can see it in your aura, the supernatural taint spreading through your system. But I can save you, Maya. Just lower the barrier and step away from them." The wolves sensed her wavering resolve and pressed closer, their warmth grounding her. Through their bond, Maya felt their absolute loyalty, their willingness to die for her without question. These weren't monsters, they were the most honorable beings she'd ever encountered. "No," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "They're not evil. They're cursed, trapped in forms that aren't truly theirs. There's a difference between choosing darkness and being forced into it." Her father's face hardened, disappointment and anger warring in his expression. "Then you're lost to me. The corruption has already taken hold." He stepped back and made a sharp gesture to his team. The hunters raised their weapons, and Maya saw with horror that the bullets weren't just silver, they were inscribed with arcane symbols that seemed to writhe in the artificial light. "Blessed silver," Kai growled in her mind. "Those rounds will kill us even if they just graze us." Maya's father raised his own weapon, a modified rifle that hummed with supernatural energy. "I'm sorry, Maya. But if I can't save you from them, I'll have to save the world from what you might become." Time seemed to freeze as Maya realized the ultimate betrayal. The father she dreamed of finding her entire life was about to murder the only family she had left. "You want to see what I might become?" Maya said, her voice deadly quiet. Power erupted from her again, but this time it wasn't wild or uncontrolled. This time, Maya embraced it fully, letting the magic flow through her like a river of molten gold. Her barrier expanded outward, shoving the hunters back with irresistible force. "Then let me show you." The real battle was about to begin, and Maya Chen was no longer hiding from her heritage. She was claiming it. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 5. The first blessed silver bullet struck Maya's barrier with the force of a sledgehammer, sending spiderweb cracks racing across the golden shield. The impact resonated through her bones, and Maya gasped as the magical feedback nearly drove her to her knees. "Concentrate." Kai's mental voice cut through her panic. "They're using weapons specifically designed to penetrate witch magic." More bullets followed in rapid succession, each one weakening her defenses further. The hunters had formed a tactical circle around her barrier, their weapons crackling with anti-magical energy that made Maya's teeth ache. Her father stood at the center of their formation, his face set in grim determination as he coordinated the assault. "Target the weak points," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd done this many times before. "Concentrated fire on the barrier's base. It'll collapse from structural failure." Maya felt her shield buckling under the relentless barrage. Sweat poured down her face as she poured more energy into maintaining their protection, but she could feel her strength bleeding away like water through a sieve. Then something extraordinary happened. The three wolves began to change. Kai's form stretched and expanded, but instead of becoming fully human, he stopped halfway through the transformation. His body elongated, muscles bulging with supernatural strength. His face remained wolfish but gained human intelligence and expression. Deadly claws extended from hands that could grip weapons. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, a perfect fusion of human cunning and predatory power. Ash and River followed suit, their own hybrid forms manifesting with fluid grace. They were magnificent and terrifying, creatures that belonged in ancient legends rather than a modern living room. "Now we fight as we were meant to," Kai growled, his voice a rumbling bass that seemed to shake the walls. The barrier finally shattered like glass, and chaos erupted. The hybrid wolves moved with impossible speed, flowing around Maya like living shadows. Kai intercepted the first hunter who lunged toward her, his claws raking across the man's armored vest with sparks and screams of rending metal. River bounded off furniture with feline grace, tackling 2 hunters simultaneously. Ash fought with cold precision, each movement calculated for maximum damage. But the hunters were professionals, equipped for supernatural warfare. Silver-edged blades sang through the air, finding their marks despite the wolves' enhanced reflexes. Kai roared in pain as a blessed knife carved across his ribs, black blood spraying across Maya's wall. That's when Maya discovered her power extended far beyond simple barriers. "Heal," she whispered, reaching out toward Kai's wound. Golden light flowed from her fingers like liquid sunshine, and the gash sealed instantly, leaving only unmarked fur behind. Kai's amber eyes widened with amazement and renewed vigor. "More," he commanded, and Maya understood. She reached out with her consciousness, feeling for the pack bond that connected all three wolves. Power flowed through those mystical threads, enhancing their strength, sharpening their reflexes, making them faster and deadlier than any natural creature had a right to be. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Empowered by Maya's magic, the wolves became unstoppable forces of nature. But with each spell she cast, each wound she healed, each enhancement she provided, Maya felt her life force dimming like a candle burning at both ends. The hunters pressed their attack with desperate fury. Maya found herself predicting their movements, seeing their strikes before they happened. She guided her wolves through mental warnings, helping them dodge silver bullets and blessed blades. But the effort was killing her. Maya. Her father's voice cut through the combat. Stop this madness. Can't you see what they're doing to you? She looked down at her hands and gasped. Her skin had taken on a translucent quality, veins glowing with golden light. Each spell was literally burning away her life force. The journal, she gasped, suddenly understanding. The curse, it requires a sacrifice. Through their bond, she felt Kai's surge of protective fury. He abandoned his current opponent and shifted back to human form, heedless of the danger. No, he said firmly, blood streaking his chest from a dozen wounds. There has to be another way. Maya's vision blurred as exhaustion threatened to claim her. But even as her strength failed, her mind raced through her grandmother's journal entries. The curse was designed to be unbreakable, requiring the ultimate sacrifice to shatter. Either one of the wolves had to die to free the others, or... There is another way, Kai said suddenly, his eyes lighting up with desperate hope. You can become one of us. Join the pack permanently. What does that mean? Maya asked, though part of her already knew. Pack bonding. Your life becomes ours, and ours becomes yours. We live together or die together. No separation, ever. Kai's voice was rough with emotion. But Maya, you need to understand, there's no going back. Once you're part of the pack, you're changed forever. Maya looked around the destroyed living room. Her father stood among the hunters, men who claimed to protect humanity by destroying anything they didn't understand. Good men, perhaps, but blinded by fear and prejudice. Then she looked at Kai, Ash, and River, beings who had protected her without question, who would die for her without hesitation. They had never asked for anything from her except the chance to be free. I choose you, Maya whispered. The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. As soon as she spoke them, power began building in the air around them, drawn by the force of her decision. Maya pulled her grandmother's journal from where it had fallen during the fight. Her fingers found the bonding ritual, written in Elena's careful script. The words seemed to glow on the page as she began to read them aloud. By blood and bone, by heart and soul, I bind myself to those who guard my spirit. Golden light began flowing between Maya and the three wolves, creating visible threads of connection that pulsed with each heartbeat. The magic was beautiful and terrible, rewriting the very fabric of their beings. But as the ritual reached its crescendo, the temperature in the room plummeted. Frost formed on the windows despite the magical fire surrounding them. A presence filled the space, ancient, malevolent, and utterly ruthless. The witch Morgana materialized in Maya's living room like a nightmare-given form. She was beautiful in the way that venomous snakes were beautiful, elegant, mesmerizing, and deadly. Dark hair flowed around her shoulders like liquid shadow, and her eyes held the cold depth of winter nights. Clever girl, Morgana said, her voice carrying the hint of an accent that spoke of old-world power. But you're too late. The curse is mine to control, and I'm not ready to release my pets just yet. The bonding ritual faltered as Morgana's presence disrupted the magical flow. Maya felt the golden threads connecting her to the wolf stretch and strain under supernatural interference. You see, Morgana continued conversationally, stepping delicately around the scattered hunters, I didn't place the curse just to punish these three for their interference. I placed it to eventually trap you as well. A Chin bloodline witch, bound by pack magic to creatures under my control? The possibilities are delicious. Maya's blood turned to ice as understanding dawned. You planned this. All of it. Of course, dear child. Did you think it was coincidence that brought them to your door at the exact moment you were ready to manifest your power? I've been manipulating events for years, waiting for you to ripen like fruit on the vine. Morgana's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Your grandmother interfered with my plans once too often, protecting creatures that should have served me. Now her granddaughter will serve me instead. Dark energy began swirling around Morgana's hands, and Maya realized with growing horror that the witch intended to corrupt the bonding ritual, turning what should have been freedom into another form of slavery. Your father was so helpful, Morgana added with mock sympathy. All those years of hunting supernatural creatures for me, thinking he was protecting the world. He never realized he was simply eliminating my competition. Maya's father staggered backward, his face white with shock and dawning comprehension. No, he whispered. You said they were monsters. You said. I said what you needed to hear to make you useful, Morgana cut him off dismissively. And now you've served your purpose by bringing me Maya. The witch raised her hands, dark power crackling between her fingers. Now, my dear, let's complete that bonding ritual properly. You'll find servitude so much more comfortable than resistance. Maya felt the corrupted magic reaching for her, trying to twist the golden threads that connected her to the wolves. But she wasn't the same frightened woman who had found 3 wounded wolves in her yard. She was a Chin witch, heir to generations of power, and she'd be damned if she'd let anyone enslave the beings she'd chosen to protect. I don't think so, Maya said, her voice ringing with newfound authority. Power erupted from her like a star going nova, golden and pure and absolutely unstoppable. The real battle for their freedom was about to begin. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 6. Morgana's laughter was like ice cracking on a frozen lake, beautiful and terrifying. Dark energy swirled around her elegant form as she regarded Maya with the satisfied expression of a spider watching a fly struggle in her web. Such fire, the witch murmured appreciatively. Elena's bloodline runs true after all. But power without wisdom is just destruction waiting to happen, dear child. Maya felt the corrupted magic pressing against her consciousness, seeking cracks in her defenses. But what truly chilled her was watching her father's face transform as Morgana's influence took hold. The confusion and shock faded, replaced by a cold, familiar determination. You see, Morgana continued conversationally, your father has been my faithful servant for over 2 decades. Every supernatural creature he's hunted, every monster he's eliminated, all carefully orchestrated to remove threats to my growing power base. Maya's heart shattered as her father stepped forward, his weapon once again trained on the wolves. Dad, no. Don't listen to her. But Morgana's dark magic was already weaving through his mind, strengthening bonds of manipulation that had been forged over years of careful conditioning. Marcus, dear, she said to Maya's father, her voice honey-sweet with false affection, your daughter is the key to unlimited magical energy. The Chin bloodline, properly channeled, could amplify my power 1,000-fold. I can protect her, Marcus said, his voice hollow and mechanical. If you have that kind of power, you can keep her safe from all the monsters. Exactly. Morgana's smile was razor-sharp. Help me claim her willing cooperation, and you'll have the power to protect her forever. No more running, no more hiding from supernatural threats. Complete security. Maya watched in growing horror as her father wavered, the love in his eyes warring with the compulsion Morgana had woven into his very soul. She could see the genuine anguish there, he truly believed he was protecting her, even as he prepared to hand her over to a creature far more monstrous than any werewolf. Dad, please, Maya whispered. Look at them. Really look. Kai, Ash, and River were struggling to maintain their hybrid forms, weakened by the interrupted bonding ritual. Golden light still connected them to Maya, but the threads were fraying under Morgana's magical interference. They positioned themselves protectively around her despite their obvious pain, ready to die rather than let harm come to her. They're not the monsters here, Maya continued desperately. They've never hurt anyone innocent. They've only tried to protect people. But Morgana's influence ran too deep. Marcus raised his weapon, finger tightening on the trigger. "Stand aside, Maya. Let me end this." The remaining hunters, freed from their confusion by Morgana's presence, began forming up around their leader. They moved with renewed purpose, their blessed silver weapons gleaming with supernatural energy designed to tear through both werewolf hide and witch magic. Morgana gestured elegantly, and dark tendrils of power lashed out toward the weakened wolves. "Really, this is all quite unnecessary. Once I've claimed Maya's power, I'll have no need for these three. They can die quickly, or they can die slowly, the choice is yours, dear." That's when something shifted in Marcus's expression. Maya saw the exact moment when 20 years of manipulation cracked under the weight of a father's love. His eyes focused on Kai, who was using his own body to shield Maya from Morgana's attack, and suddenly Marcus saw what his daughter saw. Three beings willing to die for someone they'd known less than a week. Creatures who could have fled at any time but chose to stay and protect an innocent woman. The real monsters were the ones who manipulated and enslaved, not the ones who sacrificed themselves for others. "I've made terrible mistakes," Marcus said, his voice breaking with the weight of sudden understanding. The weapon in his hands slowly lowered as Morgana's control shattered. 20 years of hunting innocent creatures because a witch convinced me they were evil. Marcus. Morgana's voice cracked like a whip, dark power surging toward him in punishment for his defiance. But Maya was ready. Golden light erupted from her hands, meeting Morgana's attack head-on. The collision of opposing magic sent shockwaves through the house, shattering what remained of her windows and sending furniture flying. "Let me help you finish this," Marcus said, stepping up beside his daughter. For the first time since her childhood, Maya felt the warmth of a father's protection. Together, they turned their combined will against Morgana. Marcus didn't have magical ability, but his love for Maya and his desperate need to atone for his mistakes created a resonance that amplified her power exponentially. "Impossible," Morgana snarled, her perfect composure finally cracking. "A mundane human cannot channel witch magic." "He's not channeling it," Maya realized with growing confidence. "He's grounding it. Giving me something stable to build on." The wolves rallied under this new protection, their hybrid forms solidifying as Morgana's interference weakened. They turned on the remaining hunters with renewed vigor, no longer fighting a desperate holding action but conducting a coordinated offensive. Maya felt the incomplete bonding ritual stirring back to life, the golden threads between her and the wolves strengthening with each passing moment. But now there was something else, a silver thread connecting her to her father, forged from forgiveness and mutual protection. "The bonding ritual," Kai called out, his mental voice clearer than it had been since Morgana's arrival. "Now, while she's distracted." Maya pulled her grandmother's journal close, finding the ritual words even as magical battle raged around her. This time, with her father's steady presence anchoring her and the wolves' absolute trust supporting her, the words flowed like music. "By blood and bone, by heart and soul, I bind myself to those who guard my spirit," Maya chanted, her voice growing stronger with each phrase. "Let our lives be one life, our strength be shared strength, our purpose be unified purpose." Golden light erupted between Maya and the three wolves, but this time it was pure and uncontaminated by Morgana's influence. The magical bonds snapped into place with an almost audible click, and Maya felt the curse that had imprisoned Kai, Ash, and River for so long finally beginning to crack. "No!" Morgana shrieked, abandoning her battle with Marcus to focus all her power on disrupting the ritual. "I will not be denied my prize." But it was too late. The bonding was complete, and with it came transformation beyond anything Maya had imagined. Light exploded outward from their connected forms, washing through the house and beyond. Maya felt herself changing, her consciousness expanding to encompass not just her own awareness but that of her pack mates. She could feel Kai's fierce protectiveness, Ash's steady loyalty, River's gentle strength. They were still individuals, but they were also something greater, a family bound by choice and magic. The three wolves shifted for the final time, their forms flowing from hybrid to human with liquid grace. But these weren't the brief, nighttime transformations Maya had witnessed before. This was permanent freedom, the curse finally and completely broken. Kai stood tall and proud, his amber eyes bright with joy and relief. Ash and River flanked him, their faces reflecting the same overwhelming gratitude. They were free. But Maya's transformation was just beginning. Even as the wolves claimed their humanity, she felt new possibilities awakening within her. The pack bond didn't just connect their minds, it shared their abilities. Maya gasped as she felt her body responding to her will in ways it never had before, muscles shifting, senses sharpening. For just a moment, Maya let herself flow into wolf form, experiencing the world through supernatural senses. She was still herself, still human at her core, but now she had access to the pack's enhanced abilities whenever she needed them. Morgana's scream of rage and frustration echoed across dimensions as her carefully laid plans crumbled around her. The witch had spent years positioning her pieces, manipulating events to bring Maya to this exact moment of vulnerability. Instead, she'd created something far more powerful than a simple Chen bloodline witch. She'd created the first true alpha in over a century, a being who combined human intelligence and magical ability with lupin instincts and pack loyalty. "This isn't over," Morgana snarled, dark energy already gathering around her for retreat. "I will have what's mine, girl. No matter how long it takes." "Try it," Maya said, her voice carrying new authority as she shifted back to human form. Around her, her pack stood ready, 3 powerful werewolves and a father who'd finally chosen the right side. "We'll be waiting." Morgana's form dissolved into shadow and spite, but her final words lingered in the air like a curse. "The war has only just begun." As silence fell over the destroyed living room, Maya realized the witch was right. They'd won this battle, but Morgana's defeat was far from permanent. The true enemy had revealed herself, and now Maya understood the scope of the conflict she'd inherited. But for the first time since this all began, she wasn't afraid. She had her pack, her father, and power she was only beginning to understand. Let Morgana come. They'd be ready. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 7. Maya stood in the wreckage of her living room, feeling the fundamental shift in her very DNA. The pack bond hummed through her consciousness like a living thing, connecting her to Kai, Ash, and River in ways that went beyond mere telepathy. She could sense their emotions, their physical state, even their dreams when they slept. But more than that, she could feel the power flowing between them, her magical abilities enhanced by their lupin strength, their supernatural senses sharpened by her human intelligence. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. "Maya?" Kai's voice drew her attention. He stood before her in human form, gloriously naked and completely unashamed, his amber eyes reflecting the same wonder she felt. "How do you feel?" Maya took inventory of her transformed body. Her eyesight was impossibly sharp, she could see dust motes dancing in moonbeams, count the individual whiskers on a mouse in the garden 50 yards away. Her hearing picked up conversations from houses miles distant. Most remarkably, she could smell emotions, her father's lingering guilt, tinged with relief and growing pride, Kai's deep contentment mixed with protective instincts, Ash and River's quiet joy at finally being free. "Different," she said, her voice carrying new undertones of authority that made all 3 men straighten unconsciously. "Stronger. Like I've been living in black and white my entire life and someone just turned on the color." Maya moved toward the shattered window, her steps silent and fluid. Without conscious thought, she shifted into wolf form, her body flowing like liquid mercury between shapes. The transformation was effortless, natural as breathing. In wolf form, the world exploded into a symphony of scents and sounds that painted a picture more detailed than any photograph. She shifted back to human form with equal ease, marveling at the dual nature that now defined her existence. "This is unprecedented," she murmured, running her hands along her unchanged but fundamentally altered body. "I've never read about a witch becoming a werewolf alpha while retaining her magic." "That's because it's never happened before," Ash said, pulling on clothes from Maya's emergency supply. His usually quiet voice carried a note of awe. "The magical systems should have cancelled each other out." "Unless," River added thoughtfully, "the pack bond created something entirely new. A hybrid that's greater than the sum of its parts." Marcus stepped forward cautiously, still processing his daughter's transformation. Maya, are you still, you? Maya smiled, and her father relaxed at the familiar warmth in her expression. I'm still me, Dad. Just more than I was before. She gestured to include all 3 wolves. We all are. That's when Kai did something that surprised everyone. He knelt before Maya, head bowed in a gesture of absolute submission. You saved us, he said simply. The curse is broken, and we're free to go anywhere, be anything we choose. Ash and River immediately followed suit, kneeling in perfect synchronization. Now let us choose to stay, River continued. Not because of magic or duty, Ash added, but because we want to. Because you're our alpha by right of deed, not just supernatural accident. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes at the depth of loyalty and affection flowing through their bond. These men, her men, were offering her their service freely, without coercion or magical compulsion. It was a gift beyond price. Rise, she said softly, and they obeyed instantly. We're family now. Families don't kneel to each other. Marcus cleared his throat, drawing their attention. If you're planning to stay together, you'll need somewhere secure. My contacts in the supernatural hunting community, some of them are good people who've been manipulated like I was. They could help establish a sanctuary here. Maya looked around her destroyed home with new eyes. The isolation that had once felt lonely now seemed perfect for their needs. A sanctuary, she repeated slowly. A safe haven for supernatural beings fleeing persecution. We could help them, Kai said, his expression lighting up with purpose. Use our abilities to protect instead of just survive. The idea took root in Maya's mind, growing with each passing moment. Her veterinary skills, combined with her newfound magical abilities and the pack's supernatural strength, could create something unprecedented, a place where all creatures, mundane and magical alike, could find healing and safety. But their planning was interrupted by a sound that made Maya's enhanced senses scream warnings. The temperature plummeted, and shadows began moving independent of their sources. Through the shattered windows came the howling of winds that carried voices speaking in languages that predated human civilization. She's coming, Kai growled, his body already beginning to shift toward his hybrid form. Morgana's making one last play. Maya felt the disturbance in the magical fabric around her property like a discordant note in a symphony. This wasn't just Morgana, the witch had summoned help. Lots of it. Supernatural creatures began materializing in Maya's yard. Corrupted spirits with glowing red eyes and claws like broken glass. Mercenary shapeshifters whose loyalty belonged to whoever paid the highest price. Shadow demons that moved like living smoke, barely visible until they struck. She's called in every favor and made every deal she could, Marcus said grimly, checking his weapons. This is her final gambit. Maya stepped onto her porch, pack flanking her on all sides. The assembled supernatural army before them was impressive, at least 30 creatures, each one dangerous enough to terrorize an entire town. Under normal circumstances, 4 people wouldn't stand a chance. But Maya was discovering that normal circumstances no longer applied to her life. Chen. Morgana's voice echoed across the battlefield as the witch herself appeared, floating above her assembled forces. You cannot escape your destiny. Your power will be mine, one way or another. My power is exactly where it belongs, Maya called back, authority ringing in her voice. And you're trespassing. Maya reached out with her consciousness, feeling for the supernatural creatures arrayed against them. To her amazement, she could sense the magical bonds that held them in thrall to Morgana. More importantly, she could feel how those bonds chafed against their true natures. Many of these beings weren't evil, they were enslaved, just as Kai, Ash, and River had been enslaved by their curse. You have one chance to withdraw, Maya announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the battlefield. Leave now, and I'll forget this trespass. Stay, and face the consequences. Morgana's laughter was like breaking glass. Bold words from a novice. Attack. Bring me her head. The supernatural army surged forward like a dark tide. Maya's pack shifted into their hybrid forms, ready to fight and die at her side. Marcus raised his weapons, prepared to face impossible odds for his daughter's sake. But Maya had other plans. She reached out with her alpha authority, not to her pack, but to the enslaved creatures charging toward them. Her power flowed outward like a golden wave, touching each supernatural being and offering them something Morgana never had: choice. "You don't have to serve her," Maya said, her voice somehow reaching every attacker despite the chaos. "I can break the bonds that hold you. All you have to do is choose freedom." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Half of Morgana's force stumbled to a halt, looking around in confusion as Maya's power dissolved their magical enslavement. Shapeshifters shook their heads as if waking from long dreams. Spirits solidified into their true forms, no longer twisted by corruption. "Impossible!" Morgana shrieked. "Those bonds were forged with blood magic." "Blood magic requires consent on some level," Maya replied calmly. "Even if it's coerced. I'm simply offering a better alternative." The freed creatures looked between Morgana and Maya, and one by one, they began withdrawing from the battlefield. Some disappeared entirely, fleeing to freedom they hadn't known in decades. Others approached Maya cautiously, offering tentative submission to an alpha who ruled through protection rather than fear. Soon, only the truly corrupted remained, demons and spirits too far gone to be saved, mercenaries who enjoyed their work too much to abandon it. The final battle was swift and decisive. Maya's expanding pack fought with coordination that bordered on telepathic, while she herself wielded power that seemed to grow with each passing moment. She could heal fatal wounds with a touch, shield entire areas with protective barriers, and command the very elements to serve her will. When Morgana herself finally descended to face Maya directly, the confrontation was as much philosophical as magical. They traded spells that lit up the night sky while debating the nature of power itself. "Power is meant to be used." Morgana snarled, dark energy crackling around her. "The strong rule the weak. That's the natural order." "Power is meant to protect," Maya countered, her golden magic meeting Morgana's darkness in brilliant explosions. "The strong protect the weak. That's what makes us human." In the end, it wasn't Maya's superior magical abilities that defeated Morgana, it was the witch's own arrogance. Surrounded by beings who chose to follow Maya rather than serve under compulsion, Morgana found herself isolated and outnumbered. Her defeat sent ripples through the supernatural community, marking the end of a reign of terror that had lasted decades. In the weeks that followed, word spread through hidden supernatural networks about the new Alpha and her unusual pack. Stories circulated about a sanctuary where creatures could find healing and protection, overseen by a witch werewolf who used her veterinary skills to help all kinds of beings. Maya found herself balancing two worlds with increasing confidence. By day, she maintained her practice treating normal animals, her enhanced abilities making her an extraordinarily effective veterinarian. By night, she worked with supernatural creatures who sought her help, healing injuries that conventional medicine couldn't address, mediating disputes between different supernatural factions, and slowly building a network of protection that spanned multiple states. Her father had become her most trusted advisor, using his contacts and knowledge to help establish safe passages and communication networks. Kai served as her second-in-command, his tactical mind perfectly suited to coordinating their growing operations. Ash handled intelligence gathering, his quiet nature allowing him to move undetected through supernatural communities. River became their diplomatic liaison, his gentle strength ideal for negotiating with nervous or traumatized beings. Together, they were creating something unprecedented, a supernatural sanctuary that operated according to principles of choice, protection, and healing rather than dominance and fear. Maya stood on her porch one evening, watching the sun set over property that now officially belonged to a non-profit organization dedicated to wildlife rehabilitation and conservation. The mundane world saw a successful veterinarian with an unusual specialty in treating exotic animals. The supernatural world saw something far more significant, hope for a future where power served protection rather than conquest. As night fell and her enhanced senses brought her reports from across her expanding territory, Maya smiled. Morgana was gone, but her legacy lived on in every creature they helped, every life they saved, every choice they made to build rather than destroy. She was Maya Chen, veterinarian and witch, human and werewolf, alpha, and protector. She was exactly who she was meant to be. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 8. 6 months after Morgana's defeat, Maya stood in what had once been her grandmother's herb garden, now expanded into a thriving sanctuary that stretched across 50 acres of protected wilderness. The morning mist clung to the trees like whispered secrets, and through her enhanced senses, she could detect the presence of nearly 24 supernatural beings who now called this place home. A young phoenix nested in the ancient oak by the creek, his golden feathers slowly regenerating after torture at the hands of supernatural traffickers. 3 teenage werewolves practiced their transformations in the eastern meadow, finally safe to explore their abilities without fear. A pair of elderly brownies tended to the vegetable garden with magical precision, their grateful service freely given rather than magically compelled. Maya's veterinary clinic had officially expanded to include exotic animal rehabilitation, a cover story that allowed her to treat everything from injured griffins to poisoned unicorns. The mundane world saw a successful practice dedicated to wildlife conservation. The supernatural community knew the truth. This was the sanctuary they'd dreamed of for generations. "Coffee's ready," Kai's voice reached her through their pack bond before his physical presence announced itself. He approached with 2 steaming mugs, moving with the fluid grace that never failed to make her heart skip. 6 months of freedom had settled beautifully on him, replacing the desperate edge of survival with quiet confidence and deepening maturity. Maya accepted the coffee gratefully, allowing herself a moment to study the man who had become so much more than her pack's beta. Their relationship had evolved naturally from magical bond to something far deeper, love built on trust, sacrifice, and shared purpose. The physical attraction had always been there, crackling between them like electricity, but what they'd built together transcended mere chemistry. "How's the morning count?" Kai asked, settling beside her on the bench they'd installed overlooking the sanctuary. 18 residents, 3 new arrivals expected by evening, Maya replied, leaning into his warmth. The young Selkie from Oregon should arrive with River's transport team around sunset. And Marcus thinks he's found the missing pack from Montana. Her father had thrown himself into redemption with the same intensity he'd once brought to hunting. Using his extensive contacts within the supernatural hunting community, Marcus had been methodically exposing Morgana's manipulation, freeing dozens of hunters from magical compulsion. More importantly, he'd created an underground network that helped persecuted supernatural beings find their way to safety. "He's made remarkable progress," Kai observed, following her thoughts through their bond. "Half the eastern seaboard hunting organizations have switched from persecution to protection in the last 6 months." Maya smiled, pride warming her chest. Her father's transformation had been as dramatic as her own, proving that people could change when shown a better path. The guilt-ridden man who'd pointed weapons at innocent creatures had become their most effective advocate, using his insider knowledge to build bridges between communities that had been at war for centuries. A commotion from the southern perimeter drew their attention. Ash materialized from the tree lean, his natural stealth making him perfect for patrol duty. In his arms, he carried a bundle that moved weakly, another refugee seeking sanctuary. "Injured Pixie," Ash reported as he approached. "Looks like someone tried to clip her wings for black market sale." Maya's jaw tightened with controlled fury. Even 6 months later, discovering new atrocities committed against innocent supernatural beings made her wolf side snarl for justice. But she'd learned to channel that anger into constructive action rather than destructive vengeance. "Bring her to the clinic," Maya instructed. "I'll be right there." As Ash headed toward the medical facility they'd built behind the main house, Maya felt the familiar pull of purpose. This was what she'd been meant for, not just protecting her own pack, but healing a broken world one creature at a time. The morning dissolved into familiar routines. Maya treated the injured Pixie's wings with a combination of traditional veterinary skills and magical healing, while Kai coordinated security for the new arrivals. River worked with their youngest residents on control exercises, his patient nature perfect for traumatized teenagers learning to manage supernatural abilities. Marcus spent hours on secure communication channels, tracking down other supernatural beings in need of help. By evening, their sanctuary felt more like home than ever. Dinner was served family-style in the communal dining hall they'd built, with conversations flowing in multiple languages and species. Maya watched their residents interact with growing confidence, forming friendships that crossed traditional supernatural boundaries. Later, as she sorted through the day's correspondence in her office, Maya found an envelope that made her pause. The paper was expensive, cream-colored with silver edging, and addressed in flowing script to the Luna Alpha, a title the supernatural community had begun using for her. Inside, she found a letter that changed everything. Honored Alpha, our pack has been cursed for over a century, trapped in animal form during daylight hours. We've heard of your ability to break such enchantments and humbly request your aid. But we must warn you, the witch who cursed us has allies. Powerful ones who see your growing influence as a threat to their control. Others seek your help as well. Cursed beings across the continent are looking to you for salvation. But with each curse you break, you make new enemies among those who profit from supernatural suffering. The ancient covens are stirring. The old powers are awakening. Your victory over Morgana was just the beginning of a much larger war. We await your response at the coordinates enclosed. But know that coming to us means stepping into dangers you cannot yet imagine. With hope and desperation, the moon-bound pack. Maya set the letter down with trembling hands. Attached were similar pleas, from a coven of witches enslaved by a necromancer in Louisiana, a clan of dragons hiding from magical poachers in the Rockies, a family of phoenixes whose children had been kidnapped for their healing tears. All of them looking to her for salvation. Kai entered the office without knocking, their bond allowing him to sense her emotional turmoil. What is it? Maya handed him the letters, watching his expression grow increasingly grim as he read. We knew this would happen eventually, she said quietly. Success brings attention. And not all of that attention is friendly. Are you afraid? Kai asked, settling into the chair across from her desk. Maya considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, the thought of facing ancient covens and old powers would have terrified her. But she wasn't the same woman who'd found wounded wolves in her yard during a blizzard. She'd grown into her power, learned to trust her instincts, and discovered the strength that came from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. No, she said finally. I'm not afraid. I'm ready. The next morning, Maya stood beside her truck in the pre-dawn darkness, checking their equipment one final time. The coordinates from the moon-bound pack would take them deep into the Appalachian Mountains, far from their established support network. It would be dangerous, possibly a trap, but she couldn't ignore the desperate plea for help. Her hands were steady on the wheel as she started the engine, and Maya couldn't help but smile at the parallel to that night 6 months ago when everything had changed. Then, she'd been racing home through a storm, terrified and alone. Now, she was driving toward uncertainty with absolute confidence in herself and her purpose. Kai settled into the passenger seat beside her, his presence as comforting as breathing. In the rearview mirror, she could see Ash and River in the vehicle behind them, ready to follow her into whatever dangers lay ahead. Any regrets? Kai asked as they pulled away from the sanctuary. Maya looked back at the home they'd built together, the place where broken creatures found healing, where the persecuted found protection, where love had triumphed over fear. Then she looked ahead to the road that would take them toward new challenges and greater responsibilities. None, she said firmly. This is who we were meant to be. As the sun rose behind them, illuminating the path ahead, Maya Chen drove toward her destiny. She was a veterinarian and an alpha, a healer and a protector, human and wolf united in purpose. She'd found her pack, claimed her power, and discovered her calling. Whatever ancient enemies awaited them, whatever new curses needed breaking, whatever greater war was coming, they would face it together. The Luna Alpha was ready for anything. I know you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. I would also like to hear your thoughts in the comments section below.